Welcome to FafNir Guide. This Season 16 where Tearlaments just released into the game, with almost full power, and it becomes the meta of this game. So powerful the meta is, that it could force all other decks to add in cards that directly counter them. But there's one archetype that actually have a built-in counter to this deck, or you can say a floodgate specifically designed to counter this new meta. That archetype is Exosister.
Bruh, what about Gravekeepers?
Well, actually Gravekeeper is also designed for that. Their graveyard lock is absolute. No cards are allowed to move around from graveyard by any kind of effects. The deck lacks of finisher, but the deck itself designed to stun and grind your opponent's resources, while Exosister is more like disruption and semi-locking graveyard. It also have the power to finish your opponent's ASAP. But the deck itself is resources heavy kind of deck, and there's no way to recover those resources unless you are adding Ishizu shufflers into the deck. Exosister is an exist based deck, that actually designed to hate graveyard as much as you hate Tearlaments. Their floodgate are mostly activated lingering effects, so the effect will stay the whole turn even though the cards is removed from the field, unlike Necrovalley. Exosister also have the power to play on our opponent's turn, but not on turn 0 like Tearlaments. All Exosister main deck monster on the field have a trigger effect when your opponents move cards from either graveyard to anywhere. It will exist summon using its own one card as a material to any Exosister exist that you want. Keep in mind this can only be triggered by opponents doing. You cannot trigger their effects by your doing, except Martha. I'll explain about it later. Here are the core cards that you need when playing this deck. The rest can be any staples and hand trap that depends on the meta. Currently the meta now is Tearlaments, and since this deck doesn't use graveyard that much, Dimensional Fissure and Dimension Shifter are playable in this deck. One thing that you need to know, that Exosister restriction and requirements is quite annoying. Here are the list of it. Martha. Even though this is the main starter for this deck, her requirements is so annoying. It requires an empty monster zone, or only an exist monster on your field. This requirement's forcing you to must always start a play with Martha. If you start by normal summon an Exosister, for example Stella, and then it got Imperm or Veiler, and you can't special summon your other Exosister, Martha is disabled, because you control a monster that are not an exist monster even though it's an Exosister. That's why Exosister weakness is Kaiju monster, because you have no way to remove your Kaiju and Martha is disabled until that Kaiju left your field. And then the second requirements that are also a restriction. For the whole turn you cannot special summon other monster except Exosister. This means, you cannot use any level 4 monster that can special summon itself like Dinotherium, Photon Thrasher and so much more. Once you special summon monster other than Exosister, your Martha is disabled on your hand. That's why you can only normal summon a level 4 monster, that actually special summon an Exosister, like Zoroa, Summoner Monk, and Goblinberg. Returnia. It stated, if all monster you control are Exosister. This means if your Exosister removed by Raigeki or Kaiju, it's a dead card on set. Arment. For most of the time I use this card. It can only be used on opponent's turn. You can use it on your own turn, if your opponents control a monster that are summoned from graveyard, so it's good against Sprite Elf. But most of the time only usable on opponent's turn. All Exosister rank 4 exist monster have an additional effect if summoned using an Exosister material, but it only can be activated on the turn it's summoned. Mikailis. Quick effect banish one card from opponent's field or graveyard. Caspitel. One turn lingering effect to lock graveyard from special summoning. Good against Sprite, Adamancipator, Zombies, and many more. Asophiel. One turn lingering effect to lock graveyard from activating any effects on it. Good against Tearlaments, Dinos, Branded Despia, Zombies and many more. Jabrine. Quick effect imperm negate a monster on opponent's field. That's all the restriction that you need to keep in mind when playing this deck. There's not much explaining in this archetype, Most of their effects are straightforward, so let's jump right into the combo section and I'll explain the rest of it there. Exosister don't have one card combo. Even though you only open a Martha, it considered a brick. That's why in my opinion adding Arment or Vadis more over Returnia is much better choice. Arment and Vadis can help you extend your play and also allowing you to exist summon on opponent's turn. That can give you access to Exist Girl's additional effect while on your opponent's turn. They are more beneficial over bricking with a Returnia on your hand. That can only allow you banish one card on opponent's turn if you only control an Exosister monster. Minimum card for Exosister are 2 cards, and here are the list of the workable 2 cards combo that lead up into the same endboard. Basic turn 1 Martha plus any Exosister except Elis. In here if you wanted to be safe you can add Elis, but keep in mind if all 3 Elis is out of your deck, Martha is disabled, so in order to keep me stay on grind game, I add Stella instead. In here, you choose freely what you need, but since we are in Tearlaments format, I prefer Arment over Returnia, so you can exist summon Asophiel as soon as possible. I'll explain about it later, but if you add Returnia, which means you can banish 4 cards on opponent's field, I'll show you how now. Exosister Magnifica have 1 trigger effects and 1 quick effect. The trigger effects triggered when your opponents activate card or effect. It's using the word when, so it must be activated in a chain reaction. For example, when opponents activate field spell and also its effect, it's better to activate the trigger effect first and then chain it with the quick effect Banish, and don't forget to detach Caspitel instead of Mikailis. So when the trigger effect resolve you will be able to exist summon to Mikailis and can banish once more. Advance Martha plus any Exosister. When you activate Martha, and if opponents has responds to it, it must be either Max C or Ash Blossom. If the opponents Ash Blossom it early we can't do anything about it unless the other Exo are either Stella or Elis, but if opponents to decide to hold the Ash Blossom, here is how you doing it. Before you exist summon it's better to normal summon the other Exo first, or if it's Elis, special summon her. Exist summon both Exosister beside Martha.
Hold on, why we should keep Martha?
Martha trigger effect has a different wording among other Exosister. It stated if a card moves out of either graveyard, means Martha effects can be triggered by your own doing. Your DD Crow, called by the grave, or even Mikailis banishing effect from graveyard, can trigger Martha effect to exist summon. Activate Mikailis to add cards. This is the perfect time for your opponents to Ash Blossom. If it is, chain Mikailis effect to banish that Ash Blossom from graveyard. After that it will trigger Martha effect to exist summon using herself as the material. Summon Caspidal and add another Martha for next turn resource and continue summon Magnifica. One Magnifica alone is a 2-card banish on opponent's turn, which is good enough. On the other hand, if your opponents decide to max C instead, do the same thing. When activating Mikailis effect, add Returnia, set and pass. With this opponents only draw 2 cards by max C. Next turn you can banish opponent's graveyard with Returnia. And Martha will exist to any exo you want. If you duel against Tearlaments, I suggest go for Asophiel. If not you can go for another Mikailis instead, and you can banish one more time. Martha plus Elis. In here same like the advanced version, you special summon Elis from hand. With Caspidal you just gonna add the missing piece. But I suggest to add Sophia, normal summon her and you gonna draw one more card and continue the combo. Martha plus Zoroa. In here, don't activate Caspidal effect, because you gonna need Zoroa to special summon from graveyard. Zoroa equip monsters or depends. If you are going first it's better to get Artemis, and then you can add another Zoroa from deck for next turn resource. But if you going second, you have 2 options. Ninanuru can destroy opponent's back row, while Riliona can negate opponent's monster. Choose them based on your situation. Any Exos plus Zoroa. Vadis plus Arment. These 2 cards is also enough to counter Tearlaments. You activate Vadis, summon Martha, and then Elis. When a Tearlament girls is about to send to graveyard from whatever the reason is, activate Arment, target Elis and exist to Mikailis. Make sure Mikailis already summoned before any Tear girls activate their fusion effect. When Tear activated, chain it to Mikailis banish effect. If they have Mudora or Keldo, they will prefer to return the girl to deck instead of getting her banish. Whatever happen, a card move from graveyard, and trigger Martha to exist summon to Asophiel and lock their graveyard. Those are all the combo that I believe will be useful in this new format. In any way, locking graveyard will deal a blow to most of combo deck besides Tearlaments, even branded Despia. Next are the tips and tricks that you need when playing this deck. Exosister Pax. Pax effect is not only for searching any Exos cards, but it can also be used to special summon Exosister monster. Each Exosister have their partner and their partner's name always mentioned in their effect text. Stella with Elis, Irene with Sophia, and Martha with Elis. When you add an Exos, you can special summon it, if any other Exos that mention on that added Exos are on the field or graveyard. When you have Pax on your hand, I suggest don't use it until a disruption happened. It could caught our opponents off guard, that they waste their disruption. Carpedivem. Carp can be used to counter Ash Blossom or other hand trap like Nibiru. If open it on your hand, activate it right away before exist summoning. It also can be used to destroy back row when your Exosister declared to attack. It's good to destroy floodgate trap like Skill Drain or any set card before you do the combo. Monster Reborn. If you use Reborn on Martha and summon her from graveyard, it will trigger Martha effect to exist summon. It also works with other special summon from graveyard effect like Call of the Haunted and Dugaris. Martha Mikailis trick. This Y advance Martha combo is really helpful. My opponents decide to remove my Mikailis ASAP, so I can't activate Mikailis effect to add Exos card. With this you can chain banish any opponent's cards from graveyard. And Martha will exist to another Mikailis, to activate and add any Exos spell you need. Arment. Arment can be used to escape skill drain like effect and remove it. Vadis. When you have Vadis on your back row, I suggest wait until our opponents activate an effect that moves cards from graveyard, so they will be exist summon after it resolve. It also can be combo with Returnia. Activate Returnia first and then chain it to Vadis. Returnia has 2 additional effect besides its banishing. Banish 1 more card, or exist summon with 2 Exo monster you control that you just summon with Vadis. That's all for the guide today.
You are now ready to kick those mermaids' ass in ranked duel.